To many collectors, the 1953 Bowman Pee Wee Reese is the peak of vintage baseball card design. It features a stunning shot of the Hall of Fame shortstop in midair as he's leaping over a sliding base runner about to turn a double play. Of course, we now know that the photo was staged, but that doesn't detract from the pure beauty of the image. But here's a trivia question for you. Do you know who that base runner is? It's a former teammate of Pee Wee's, a guy with a huge personality and a tendency to draw attention to himself that would be the envy of today's TikTok generation. Stanley George Bordagaray's family roots trace back to the Basque region of southern France, so naturally, his nickname was Frenchy. But nothing is ever normal with this guy. He had 6 brothers, and every single one of them were also nicknamed Frenchy. He would have thrived in today's world. Many decades before social media, Frenchy was a one-man media circus. For a player with a career 2.2 WAR, he drew a hugely disproportionate amount of attention in newspapers, magazines, and cartoons. He was a showman who loved the attention, and he was a master at using the press to his advantage. In an era where players had no bargaining power, Frenchy routinely leveraged the media to gain public favor and held out for a larger contract nearly every year that he played. He was a star athlete who ran track and played both baseball and football for Fresno State. While in the midst of a 189-game season for the Sacramento Senators, he ran an exhibition race against a horse in the California State Fair. And yes, you heard me right. The Pacific Coast League played 189 games in 1932. But these acts weren't what attracted the most attention for Frenchy. The newspapers and baseball fans across the country were all in shock in 1936 when Frenchy had the audacity to show up to spring training, get this, with a mustache. Insane, I know. When Frenchy Bordagaray arrived in spring training sporting a glorious mustache, it caused quite the stir. Frenchy had grown the mustache for a role in the movie The Prisoner of Shark Island, and he was still wearing it when spring training arrived. Hard to believe that such a thing could ruffle so many feathers, but it became an issue that drove Casey Stengel to a breaking point. Frenchy refused to shave it, and even added a monocle to his wardrobe when arriving at the ballpark. I really just can't make sense of why the mustache was such a big deal. Please tell me if you think you know, because movie stars of that era had mustaches, so was it just a baseball thing? If you're a card collector, you may know that the 1909 to 1911 Tito 6 of John Titus is the only card in that 524-card set to show a man wearing a mustache. And we wouldn't have another baseball card featuring a stash until Dick Allen in 1971. A stretch of 60 years where every card showed a clean-shaven man. Why? New York Sun writer Dan Parker was so in awe of the mustache, it inspired him to write a poem that I think is worth sharing. Quote, "Skating's revival and cycling's survival brings fads of a far distant day. Now if drooping mustaches break out like rashes, please blame Frenchy Bordagaray. This jolly young codger, this fly-chasing dodger, just climbed aboard C. Stengel's ship, and when he reported, 'twas noticed he sported an eyebrow where once was a lip." Frenchy certainly loved being the center of attention and probably accounted for at least some of the gray hair on Stengel's melon. While talking to reporters after one game where the Dodgers beat the Cardinals 4-3, he said, quote, "I accounted for all 7 runs. I knocked in 4 myself and played a Terry Moore hit into a 3-run homer." Frenchy was traded to St. Louis for 1937, where he played the fiddle and the washboard in Pepper Martin's Mudcat Band. The band toured the theater circuit for $50 a show. Frenchy again became the media darling and was praised for his ability on the washboard. Quote, "Frenchy is the sensation," declared the Associated Press. His washboard has a 3-tone phone, bicycle bells, and even electric lights for special renditions. After the 1939 season, Frenchy opened a nightclub in Cincinnati called Frenchy's Barn. And towards the end of his career, he invested in a company that built cemeteries across the U.S. and made more money with that company than he did playing baseball. While trying to hang on to his career at the end, playing in the minor leagues, Frenchy punched and spat in the face of an umpire. Something obviously completely out of line today, but honestly, it was not uncommon back then. Just ask Brick Owens, the umpire that Babe Ruth punched, the guy who earned his nickname from being hit in the head by bricks thrown by angry fans. When Frenchy was fined for spitting on the umpire, the papers ate up his famous reply, quote, "I deserve something, but this is more than I expectorated." There's one final story I want to share. It may be legend, but the story goes that Frenchy was thrown out at home on a close plate-to-plate because he didn't slide. Casey Stengel was incensed when Frenchy told his manager that he failed to slide because he had cigars in his back pocket and he didn't want to ruin them. Stengel fined him on the spot, and as the legend goes, the next day Frenchy hit a home run, and while rounding the bases, he stopped and slid into each bag. I can imagine if that indeed happened, an old baseball man like Casey Stengel would have been absolutely fuming in the dugout. Frenchy Bordagaray passed away in the year 2000 at the age of 90. If you're into card collecting, you know that the era he played in, between 34 and 45, there's a real dearth of sports cards. The only real mass-distributed card he has is the 1939 Play Ball issue. But if you're going to pick up a Frenchy card, why not go for that Pee Wee Reese, 53 Bowman. Thanks for your time. Take care.
That's, okay. Let's do that. Let me turn up a little one. It's okay. Come on, it's okay. Woo! You're gonna get wet. This one I can tell. Woo! Okay.